Anthropic have been in the news an awful lot recently, pushing back on Claudebot and then OpenClaw and being kind of the bad guys in that situation. It wasn't a good look that they went in heavy on a solo developer, Peter Steinberger. Then yesterday, they released information saying that Chinese labs are trying to distill their models. I put together a presentation and that was covered in the newsletter. That's at aiwithkyle.com if you want to see that. Basically saying the Chinese labs were copying Claude. They were using it as a teacher model to train student models in order to profit and to catch up with Claude without spending any of the money. They were in the news yesterday because of that. The big news is this ongoing struggle with the Pentagon, as I think it has been very terrifyingly renamed. Basically, last summer, the Pentagon gave contracts to 4 different labs. They gave contracts to XAI, Elon Musk's lab. They gave a contract to OpenAI, the creators of Chat. They gave a contract to Google, the creators of Gemini. And they gave a contract to Anthropic. Each of these contracts was around $200 million. All 4 of them were brought in to the Pentagon to work out what could be done with AI for the nation's defense, for the US's defense. At the time, I thought this was a good idea. You bring in all 4 and see which one's going to work the best. From a procurement of a government department, that makes sense. The risk was Elon Musk was still buddies with Trump. So there was a risk that XAI and Grok would be the only game in town. They'd be bought inside the Pentagon and that model would be used. Grok is not very good, unfortunately. So I thought what the Pentagon was doing was smart. You bring in all 4, you give them each a budget and you see what happens. This has led to the situation we're in now, where the US is threatening Anthropic with a deadline on Friday. So they've got a couple of days to remove their safeguards in the usage of Claude and Anthropic's models inside of the Pentagon. This is some scary stuff. Now, I do want to point out that Anthropic are the only ones who are in this situation, which means very likely, and this is speculation, that XAI, Google, and OpenAI have been asked to remove similar safeguards, and they all did. So when we see Anthropic saying, nope, not doing that, that's because they're making a stand. So all plaudits to them. Let's have a look at what's going on, and this is potentially a disaster for Anthropic. They've got until Friday as a deadline. So the US Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, I only know him from South Park, that's terrible. Pete Hegseth vowed to remove Anthropic from his agency's supply chain if the company declined to follow its artificial intelligence technology, if they declined to allow Claude to be used across military applications. The threat was issued on Tuesday, so yesterday, at a Pentagon meeting where Hegseth had demanded with Anthropic boss, no, it's not badly written. Sorry, it's me not being able to read it. A meeting that Hegseth had demanded with Anthropic boss Dario Amodei, a source familiar with discussions, told the BBC. We continued good faith conversations about our usage policies to ensure Anthropic can continue to support the government's national security mission in line with what our models can reliably and responsibly do. Interestingly, yesterday, when Anthropic basically said the Chinese are trying to steal our secrets, they leveraged national security as the main reason why this had to be taken seriously. So they're kind of playing on both sides here. Anthropic is saying, hey, we need to protect against the Chinese. They are distilling our models. They'll be able to use their models without any safeguards. They'll be able to build bioweapons. They'll use it for surveillance, intelligence against America. But they're also in this argument embroiled with the Pentagon and saying that we're not actually going to do everything for national security because we will not go beyond certain boundaries. So they're playing a very interesting game here where they are not fully hawkish and they're not fully doves. They're not fully pacifist here, but instead trying to teeter between them. Don't know how that's going to go. A senior Pentagon official said Anthropic had until Friday evening to comply. A source told the BBC the tone of the discussion between Hegseth and Amodei was cordial. Amodei laid out what Anthropic considers to be its red lines. These include involvement in autonomous kinetic operations, in which AI tools make final military targeting decisions without human intervention. So we're talking about guns, drones, bombs, missiles that will target and eliminate based on artificial intelligence. So even removing a drone operator, even removing the human who is making that final kill decision and giving that to an artificial intelligence. Anthropic have said, nope, absolutely not. We are not going to allow Claude to make that decision. They haven't given their reasons, but there's a good ethical reason for this. This is a slippery slope, but also there are accuracy problems here, like how Do we rely on the AI to always get that right? No, it's not going to. We already see hallucinations. We see problems in artificial intelligence. AI is stochastic. It's not deterministic. It's going to get things wrong. And when you are linking this to a missile, when you're linking it to a drone strike, when you're linking it to a gun, that has very strong ramifications. The use of Anthropic tools for mass domestic surveillance constitutes another red line, the source said. Domestic surveillance in the USA. But the Pentagon official told the BBC the current conflict between the agency and Anthropic is unrelated to the use of autonomous weapons or mass surveillance. I doubt that. The official said if Anthropic did not comply, Hegseth would ensure the Defense Production Act was invoked on the company. That measure could compel Anthropic executives to allow unrestricted use by the Pentagon on national security grounds. So they'll basically force them to make Claude unfettered so it can be used in these military applications. The official added that the Pentagon would simultaneously label Anthropic as a supply chain risk. Now, this is normally something that is only done to foreign companies, so to Chinese and Russian companies, for example. So this is a wild thing to do to a domestic company, one that is also in part propping up your economy. So I don't know if this is bluffing. It's a very high stakes game here. And this potentially, we could see the AI bubble pop on Friday if this goes ahead. So people are talking about the financial bubble. We're talking about whether or not these AI companies are going to be able to get their money back. If the Pentagon labels Anthropic a supply chain risk on Friday, we're pulling the rug out from underneath the whole thing. It's a hairy week. I imagine Anthropic will probably fold. I don't know if they have a choice. Otherwise, they might cease to exist on Friday. An Anthropic spokesperson said Amadei expressed appreciation for the department's work and thanked the secretary for his service during the meeting with Hegseth. I'd love to know what he's thinking privately. Anthropic is the maker of the AI chatbot Claude and was one of the 4 companies to be awarded contracts with the Pentagon last summer. Very important. They are the only ones who are putting up a fuss. OpenAI, Google, XAI are not making the same noises. They're not publicly hearing about them saying, no, we're not crossing these lines. Google, OpenAI, and Elon Musk's XAI, which makes the AI chatbot Grok, were also awarded contracts of up to $200 million each. So Defense Secretary Emil Michael has previously said the agency wants OpenAI, Google, XAI, and Anthropic to allow the Pentagon to be able to use any model for any lawful use cases. Anthropic has consistently aimed to position itself as a more safety-orientated approach to AI research as compared to rivals, and it regularly shares safety reports on its own products with the public. They are the most open, focused on safety and ethics out of all of the main labs. Apparently, Claude was used during the operation that led to the capture of former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in January. The capture, the military operation, the kidnapping, let's call it what it is, of a sovereign foreign leader. May have been a complete arsehole, but going in and taking a leader from a country is still very problematic. Using Claude in that operation may have been part of this impasse that we have between the Pentagon and Anthropic. Potentially an extremely large problem for Anthropic. We will see how this plays out over the week. I don't know how they get out of this. Maybe they can pull out of their contract. Don't know what that means financially, but being labeled as a supply chain risk could be the end of Anthropic. If they are not able to operate in America, they are already not operating in China, they will basically lose their customer. So they're in a very precarious position at the moment. That has ramifications on the whole of the AI market. A lot of money is being thrown at AI right now. And if one of the top companies producing the top models is removed from the equation, that's going to have a huge impact on the dynamics of that market. But I'm with them here. I think the fact that they are one of the 4 companies who's actually saying, no, we're not going to do this, is telling. It shows that they are actually interested in the ethics. A lot of companies will talk about the ethics, they'll talk about the morality of using AI. But when a couple of $100 million are on the table, those qualms become less visible. Whereas Anthropic at least are saying, no, we're not going to do this. And this is not what we want AI to be used for in the future. Now, on the flip side, why did you take the contract? So all 4 of these companies, OpenAI, Google, XAI, and Anthropic, took the $200 million contract from the Pentagon. What did you think you were going to be asked to do? If you were being asked by the Pentagon to come in and provide AI services, did you think that was going to be purely peaceful? Did you not think this was going to be involved in war and intelligence and espionage and control? You put yourself in this position by taking that contract. But I'm glad at least now you are drawing some red lines, even if it took a year. Fascinating story. We will see how it rolls out over the rest of the week. Could be very bad news for Anthropic. They are having a rough 2026, but they still produce the best models. Like Claude code is still extremely good. And I'm going to be talking about something in a moment which makes it even better. I'm going to hop over to the questions. Didn't they get Grok? Yes, they had Grok 2. So it was OpenAI. So they had OpenAI, they had XAI, Anthropic, and Google all got contracts from the Pentagon. I have no idea what they were doing with Grok. Grok actually dominates the charts in managing a business and made the most efficient one. Everyone's good at one benchmark, but increasingly the benchmarks don't really mean that much. And you can also train to the benchmarks, and you can also make your own benchmarks. OpenAI has the GDP benchmark. OpenAI created this, GDP Val, which is their own benchmark. And then surprisingly, they do really well in it. So we have to be really careful of benchmarks as a whole because they are increasingly meaningless, especially when the companies themselves make the benchmarks and then unsurprisingly do very well in the benchmarks. What more would happen if Anthropic does not give in on Friday? I don't know. This is unprecedented. I genuinely don't know. So if they are, let's see what this actually means. Classify Anthropic as a supply chain risk or seize AI model. And we're going to ask, what does this mean for a company? So normally this is levied on foreign companies, foreign actors. So I'm going to use AI overviews. Thank you, Google. A supply chain risk refers to the potential for disruption in being labeled a supply chain risk. It's been identified by government agencies such as the Department of Defense, Department of Commerce, or FCC as a potential threat to US national security, economic security, or critical infrastructure. The designation often results in significant, often devastating restrictions on a company's ability to operate within the US market and with US partners. Oh yeah, they would not be able to sell to anyone who has government contracts. So it's like, that's going to demolish a huge amount of their enterprise market. So severe legal and regulatory restrictions, so entity list restrictions, they'll be placed on a restricted party list, which restricts its ability to buy or receive US origin goods, software, or technology. Not great. Won't be able to buy any more GPUs. Won't be able to buy cloud compute, import sales and bans. The FCC may prohibit the authorization, sale, or of equipment deemed a threat, particularly in telecommunications or video surveillance. So this is what's happened to a lot of the Chinese mobile companies. Often supply chain risk is used against Chinese companies. I'm not sure if it's been levied against an American company. I will look that up, but if somebody knows, do tell me. Export controls. Company may face strict limitations on exporting products or technology that uses US components. It could be argued that it's a US developed product and that it can no longer be sold outside of the US. But then they don't have a US market either because they can't sell to companies that are affiliated or have any dealings with the government either. So that wipes out a lot of their market. Federal agencies may terminate existing contracts or be forbidden from awarding new contracts. Guilt by association. US companies may stop working with the labeled firm to avoid becoming high risks themselves. One of the biggest investors in Anthropic is Amazon. If Amazon pull their support, it's going to get really risky. I imagine Amazon would have no qualms in pulling that support because Amazon have a lot to lose and they need to protect that business. Bezos has been building that business for decades now. Supply chain exclusion. Major US suppliers and partners may stop using the company's components, disrupting their global business, reduce market access, increased operating costs. Defense Production Act. In extreme cases, the US government may use the Defense Production Act to compel a company to act against its own interest, such as forcing it to drop safety safeguards or provide products against its will. I've lost the article now, but that was being talked about. So basically forcing the use of the model and the dropping of the safeguards so it can be used in the Pentagon. This is saying in extreme cases, but we are in extreme times in the US politically, so this would not surprise you. Nothing surprises me anymore. Foreign adversary ties, connection to or control by foreign governments. So reasons for designation normally are being tied to a foreign government, so China or Russia, generally Iran as well. Cybersecurity vulnerabilities, a history of security breaches, malware, or lack of secure technology in the infrastructure. They don't have that. Ethical violations, the use of forced labor or unethical sourcing practices, counterfeit parts, introduction of tampered or counterfeit components. So none of these are applicable to Anthropic. So this would be a new precedent for the US government to do this to such an important company in the US. So we'll see who blinks. But I think Anthropic are in a tough position, because if this happens to them, I think they're done, which is terrifying. We'll see. This is speculation. I'm sure it will resolve over the next few days. Let's have a look at this. Perfect. So Coursera put out a report about AI use by UK students. It's about how many students in the UK are using artificial intelligence. I have talked about this anecdotally before. I often work out of a public library. I like the environment. I like being in there, having people around me working. I see lots of students, lots of young people. They're either doing their GCSEs, their A-levels, or university students. All of them are using chat. I've not seen a kid sitting there with pen and paper. They're all on their laptops. They've all got ChatGPT and their homework, or ChatGPT and their essay. I've seen university students, ChatGPT, got the book on the table, but they were asking ChatGPT about the book and spending more time with ChatGPT than with the book itself. Again, this is fully anecdotal. It's like, well, this seems like it's going to be an issue. I put together a whole guide about this. Is AI making us stupid, basically? Here it is. And talked about how it's kind of stealing away our learning, when a lot of us, if you're older like me, when we went to university, when we went through school, the difficulty, the friction of creating essays, learning by hand, rote learning, etc., that was what forced the learning, whereas now we can get very quickly to the answers. So we've moved from this productive friction that is required for learning, getting things wrong, correcting ourselves, getting it wrong again, correcting ourselves, and then finally getting it right. We've gone from that to suddenly being able to get to an answer very quickly. And it's different to something like a calculator, because with a calculator, you still need to know what buttons to tap in. You still need a conceptual understanding of what it is you are doing. With generative AI, no, not really. I could sit down right now and be like, hey, I want to write a sociological essay about such and such and such. Can you help me with that? I have no background in sociology, but I'd probably be able to create something that is a facsimile of a good sociology essay. So imagine that, but for full-time students. They have this tool at their disposal which allows them to produce the end result very, very quickly. I won't say cheat, because that's a value-laden term, but to produce the end result, be it an essay, be it an assignment, extremely quickly. So here's some empirical research though. This comes from Coursera's AI in Higher Education report. It surveyed 4,200 students and educators from university in the UK, US, Mexico, India, and Saudi Arabia. So it's relatively global, and found that UK students are now using AI to complete nearly half, 48% of their studies, versus 24% in 2024. In about a year and a half, it has doubled from 24% to 48%. And it's going to keep going. This is a higher proportion than the global average of 44%, and that of US students, who are using it for 38% of their study tasks. So 48% of tasks are being done with artificial intelligence by students in the UK. It's quite a lot, and it's gone up really quickly. Almost half of UK students study tasks completed using AI, double last year's amount, the highest of all countries surveyed by Coursera. 4 in 5 students in the UK say that their grades have improved since they started using AI, and also a reason for why they're using it. They're getting better grades. Why would you not use it? You can get better grades in less time. It seems silly not to use it. It's very efficient. This brings up bigger questions about education, but from the point of view of the student, it makes sense. Just 30% of UK universities have a formal policy on AI usage, which is still the highest of any surveyed country. That is wild. Only a quarter of educators are confident that they can detect AI-generated work, which is down from 42% last year. That means that teachers are realizing, like, shit, I can't tell the difference anymore. Because initially, we had a phase for a year or so when AI detectors were a big thing, and everyone was putting everything through AI detectors and like, haha, you're using AI. It's seeping through to educators, to teachers, to everybody that AI detection doesn't work. More money is being poured into AI generation than into AI detection. AI detection was behind and didn't work, and it is not going to catch up. So the best way is for a teacher to know what the student's output looks like, and then to see if there's a change when they're using artificial intelligence. That's going to become increasingly difficult because students would be using AI for everything. So when that student arrives at the university or arrives in your class for the first time, that's just the level they're going to be at. That's a new benchmark. For the first couple of years after ChatGPT, teachers could look for a difference. If there was a sudden delta, and suddenly Timmy, who wasn't the brightest kid, suddenly is getting A+, and he's writing these beautiful newspaper essays, then a teacher can be like, well, are you using AI? That's no longer going to be visible anymore because 50% of students are already using AI. So this brings up big questions about the education system. The answer is not just ban AI, because it's not going to work, and it's also a bit silly because they're going to be using it in their work as well. But instead, I believe the answer is going to be in how do we ensure that kids are still learning whilst they are producing output using artificial intelligence. And that's a difficult question. I covered this in some detail in issue 143 of the newsletter, basically talking about how you can actually use AI to learn things, but that requires a mindset shift yourself. You need to decide you want to learn. You need to decide education is very important. And AI can be incredibly valuable. If you just want to get your homework done so that you can go out with your friends and hang out, yes, you can use it to cheat. Yes, you can make sure you don't learn and get to the end result. Student confidence is growing. 85% of university students believe AI is having a positive impact on higher education, up from 67% in 2024. In contrast, educator sentiment is moving in the opposite direction. For educators, it was 85% thought it had a positive impact, and that's dropped to 69%. So the students are getting more bullish on this, being like, yeah, this is great. And the teachers increasingly are like, oh no, this is a problem. In 2024, just over a fifth, 21% of educators did not think AI could have a negative impact on higher education, but by 2025, that figure has fallen dramatically to just 3%. Did not think that AI was having a negative impact. Okay, so they do think it is having a negative impact. I'm struggling with double negatives. So we have some empirical evidence. I'll put the report inside of the newsletter so you can have a look at it yourself. I'll have to find it. I will get it out from behind whatever paywall or whatever email requirements it is and just give it to you so you can actually read it. It's very hard to find. I think this is an important issue. It's going to be increasingly important. Education systems, unfortunately, don't move very fast. Our forms of education are basically Victorian, like sitting down, rote learning for exams, etc. It is basically a Victorian system that we haven't really adapted. It was already out of date when the internet came along. Increasingly, with artificial intelligence, the kind of gaps in traditional education and how useful it is for life will be widened out and more exposed. We need a solution. I don't know what that solution is. I'm sure there are very smart people working on it, but these stats show that it needs to be solved. We need some kind of resolution quite quickly. Okay, let's hop over to Claude. Let's see, Master CF says no more Claude then. Hopefully not. I think Claude, God, I hope Claude will be okay, especially with this news. So Claude have released a very cool new feature. This is, in a way, them moving towards OpenClaw. They're moving towards Claude Bot. So what this allows you to do is continue your Claude code sessions, but on the go. They've released something called Claude Code Remote Control. Kick off a task in your terminal and pick it up from your phone whilst you take a walk or join a meeting. Claude keeps running on your machine and you can control the session from the Claude app or claude.ai/code. So this is kind of one of the promises of OpenClaw, the ability to continue coding, continue working with your assistants while you're on the move. So you can be at your computer working with your OpenClaw, then you can hop on a bus and you're, chatting to it on your phone. Maybe you can log on your laptop and it's just going to be persistent and continuous. That's what they've offered here with this remote control. This means that I can sit at my laptop or my computer here, work on something, and then continue working on it via the web interface. This is kind of like, it sounds mean, but like baby's first OpenClaw. It's a very limited version of OpenClaw, just for using Claude code, but that's still very, very powerful. And it's in a much more secure, much more stable system than OpenClaw, which is, again, something that I think is exciting, but I don't recommend most people use. So I have not got access to this yet, despite having a Max plan. So remote control is available for research preview for Max users and coming soon to Pro users. I have Max. Maybe I need to run some commands. I haven't sent this up yet. The great thing about this is we can work anywhere. The terrible thing about this is we can work anywhere. So I already have an issue. Last night I was up until about 10 p.m. continuing to work on stuff, building out new funnels, using Claude Code, using Codex. This makes this even more of a problem. I already feel when I'm using Claude Code or AI coding tools that any time spent not running an agent, not running a process is wasted time. If I'm not running 3 or 4 agents, I have 2 behind me running at the moment, I feel like I'm slipping behind, I'm falling behind. The fact that I can now control it via my phone means that any time a task is complete, I'm going to want to switch over to my phone and continue it. So I think from a focus, from a dopamine point of view, this is probably a disaster because it allows us to work absolutely anywhere. We've seen this paradox of AI not actually reducing work, but increasing work for the people who are using it, because we get excited about all the things we can do. But I think this is a very cool tool. It's a great step in the direction of giving us an OpenClaw, a persistent online assistant that we can get from anywhere, from any device that we can chat to. But this is a more confined version, focused on what actually really matters, which is using our Claude code. I'm excited to get this sorted out, just seeing what people are saying about it. Yeah, OpenClaw users have had this for months, but it's cool to see Claude code catching up. Not going to lie, the start a task and check from your phone workflow is genuinely addictive once you try it. I agree. You can start up tasks on your computer, go off and do other things and provide kind of feedback and steering and guidance whilst you're out and about on the move. Very cool. So I'll get that installed and I'll report back. Another coding upgrade. I want to explain why this is quite a big idea. This is in Cursor. So Cursor is a development environment, a really good one that you can use for vibe coding, agentic engineering. They have just pushed out an upgrade where the agent, once you've built a website, once you've built an application, once you've built your product, the agent can go on to your website and go onto your product. It can click around, it can sign up, it can use the product, it can work out how to do password resets, it can act as a simulated user. So we've been able to do this in our testing, but what this does now is it will also record a video. So it'll do a video demo of its interactions. That video can then be used by Cursor to pinpoint and fix problems. So basically there's a simulated agent which uses the application, finds problems, those problems are recorded and sent back into Cursor. Cursor says, I see this part's non-responsive, or this text box is spilling over the edge, or when they click on this button after this button, it doesn't fire, or they're having problems with the password reset and they're getting this error message. It will do all of that. It will see all of that from the demo video and then do the fixes for you. Doesn't sound like that big a deal unless you do this kind of building. But when I'm building a product or a website, I'll put together the first draft version and then I will send it to humans. So I will send it to my business partner, Harms. He will then go through and look for copywriting errors, give me feedback on spacing, say, oh, we should add a testimonial here, or this video here didn't load, or whatever. He'll give that all to me in screenshots and annotated screenshots in a PDF file. I can then take that PDF file and feed it into my artificial intelligence, and it can read that PDF and it can see what Harms has commented and respond. That works really well and it's pretty efficient. This is even more efficient because I can set my agent to go and use the application to find problems, to record those problems, route them back into Cursor to fix those problems, and then send out another agent to go and test again. So it's removing humans from processes that would lose time having to go back and forward on those processes. So this is what we're seeing across the board in coding. We're going to be seeing it across the board in agentic AI, basically. But that's why I think this is really, really exciting. It's a very cool implementation. By looking at what we do with our human processes and thinking, how can we replicate that inside of Cursor by recording video demos and then using those video demos to directly provide feedback. Very, very cool. So I will also be messing around with that later. Morning, Jesse. Lots of new claws. Any thoughts on Rust-based serial claw or any others? I haven't used them yet. I've just been using OpenClaw. I know there's a whole bunch of more lightweight OpenClaws. For me, the kind of heaviness of OpenClaw wasn't really a problem. It's already fairly lightweight. It depends what you're doing with it, really. I haven't had time to mess around with ZeroClaw yet. I've heard good things. I just haven't managed to yet. So ZeroClaw is the next generation AI assistant framework written in Rust. Cool. Ultra lightweight, blazing fast, memory safe, built for production. So the binary is 3.4 megabytes. That's mad. Let's be honest. Let's look at the comparison to ZeroClaw. So startup time is under 10 milliseconds, whereas the startup time for OpenClaw is 500 milliseconds. The binary size is about 150, so the size of the program is about 150 megabytes for OpenClaw versus 3.4. So it's kind of a stripped down, much more efficient version of OpenClaw. Personally, I have never felt that OpenClaw was so heavy, and I've never really worried about the 500 millisecond startup time enough for me to go and explore alternatives. This looks very cool. I will play around with it because I know there's a bunch of them out there now. People who've replicated, which is easy to do considering OpenClaw is open source. They've replicated OpenClaw, made improvements, made it more lightweight, hoping for similar levels of success as Peter Steinberger. I think the product itself is less important than the community, the hype to a certain extent, because the hype leads to people working out use cases. The hype leads to more people getting involved in the open source project, building more things. That's the exciting part about OpenClaw, is the ecosystem, the things around it. OpenClaw itself is relatively, I don't want to denigrate his work in any way, but it's a relatively simple part of it. It's the ecosystem of things around that allows us to do everything. And that's what OpenClaw has at the moment. So I will mess around with it. I just haven't yet. I'm going to load this onto my old Android phone. Yeah, I mean, 3.4 megabytes, it should be fine. Any ideas about how to get into AI apart from teaching or training? Do you mean building stuff? Just start building, honestly. If you've got no budget at the moment, get anti-gravity. So anti-gravity is free. Individual plan is $0 a month. If you've got a bit of budget and you're non-technical, use Lovable. If you have some budget and you are a bit more technical, you can use Cursor. You could use Codex. The Codex app on Mac is really, really good. That's from ChatGPT. And then if you're a bit more technical than that and you have more money to spend, you can use Claude Code. With Claude Code, you're going to need the $100 a month plan. You can maybe get away with the $20 a month, but you're going to run into limits pretty quickly. But if you have $100 or $200 a month for Claude Code, absolutely use that. So in terms of getting into it, I would just start building, honestly. Business, I put together this course, which is free. It's all on the website aiwithkyle.com, which talks about working out what your niche is, starting your distribution as early as possible, coming up with a business idea, and then vibe coding, how you build, and specifically how to build a minimum viability product or a proof of concept so you can get it to your distribution channels as quickly as possible, work out what they want, and then build from there. I see too many people just build stuff that people don't want, which is easier than ever to do now because it's so easy to build. But in terms of getting into it, just start building. The quicker you start doing that, the more you immerse yourself in that. That's when opportunities start to open up, because you start having questions like, oh, could I use AI to build such and such? And the answer is generally, yeah, you can. Actually, we'll hop over to that because this is very funny. So we've had a couple of big AI built projects in the last couple of days. The guys at CloudFlare rebuilt Next.js in a week. Because sure, why not? So last week, one engineer and an AI model rebuilt the most popular front-end framework from scratch. The result, vNext, let's have a look at it. There we go. It's under the MIT license, so you can go and do what you want with it. Is a drop-in replacement for Next.js built on Vite. It must be Vite. That deploys to Cloudflare workers with a single command. In early benchmarks, it builds production apps up to 4 times faster and produces client bundles up to 57% smaller. And we already have customers running it in production. The whole thing cost about $1,000. So some engineer at Cloudflare was like, Next.js, everyone loves it, we have to use it, but good God, it's clunky. Let me see if I can rebuild it. And he did. Next.js is the most popular React framework. Millions of developers use it. It powers a huge chunk of production web, and for good reason. The developer experience is top notch. But Next.js has a deployment problem when using a broader serverless ecosystem. It takes a long time to build. Every time you deploy, it takes a long time, and that time adds up and is wasted. So what he's done was created a version that builds 4 times faster by rebuilding it from scratch. Very cool. It's called vNext. This is one example of once you start using AI and once you start building stuff, you will have questions about, what can I do with this? And instead of researching and trying to find the answer for that question, you can just start building. You will realize what the limitations of AI are, what it can do, what it can't do. You will just be learning by doing. So I just highly recommend getting your hands dirty and starting to build, because there's some very cool stuff being built and everything seems to be speeding up. We thought that 2026 everything would maybe slow down, maybe we'd see a plateau, but we're going in the opposite direction. And the other big one, which knocked 10% off IBM, this was earlier in the week. Anthropic had Claude Code refactor legacy COBOL applications. How long has COBOL been around? COBOL has been around since 1960. So it's a 66-year-old programming language. Now, that sounds mad, but it is used in a lot of enterprise-level systems. I'm not sure the percentage, but it is still a very important language in enterprise mainframes and systems. So very old, 66-year-old programming language. So Claude Code refactored some legacy applications, and that sent IBM stock price dropping by 10%. So this is another example, like this rebuilding of Next.js, example of giving a complicated task, giving it to AI, and AI being able to get on with it and finish the job. Although COBOL is everywhere, especially in sectors like finance and government, the number of people who understand it is shrinking every year. Developers retire, documentation is out of date, and only a handful of universities are teaching COBOL. This is a 66-year-old programming language. Rewriting COBOL applications isn't easy. You reverse engineering business logic from systems built when Nixon was president. AI tools like Claude Code and OpenAI's Codex can massively speed things up, modernizing in quarters what would have previously taken years. They can map dependencies, document forgotten workflows, and identify hidden risks. So why does this matter to IBM, and why did its share price take a 13% hit? One blog article took 13% off their share price. It comes down to IBM's mainframe business, the core of Big Blue's original success. Those COBOL applications aren't just legacy software, they require legacy hardware to run, that is mainframes. COBOL means finally moving off of mainframes as well. Investors seem to have been spooked, going on an IBM selling spree. So basically, IBM are providing these mainframe computers still, because that's what's needed to run the COBOL code. But if you're refactoring legacy COBOL applications into more modern languages, because COBOL is difficult to use and it has very few people who can actually do it, then you don't need IBM's mainframes. And that was enough to take 13% off IBM's stock price. Let's see what IBM, see if it's still going down. Oh, it went up. It bumped. Is this it? This is probably it. Oh no, that's 5 day. There we go. So yeah, it had a bit of a hit. To be fair, it has been in free fall for the last 6 months. IBM stock suffers worst crash in 25 years, thanks to Anthropic's Claude Code. This is what we're starting to do with vibe coding or agentic engineering. AI taking control of the coding process is, last year, we were using it on little toy projects. And even Andrej Karpathy, the guy who coined the term vibe coding, he said when he first coined it, it's great for little weekend projects, fun little toys. In a year or so, we are suddenly getting AI swarms that can do things like build a C compiler. Claude Code put together a C compiler with a team of parallel Claudes. It took $20,000 in API costs. It had 2,000 Claude Code sessions, and it produced a 100,000 line compiler based in Rust. It was 16 agents all working together, orchestrating, checking each other's work, and continuing on for 2 weeks until the task was done. So we are seeing vibe coding, or agentic engineering, which is the more grown-up term for it, start to crack big projects. It is not just for putting together a nice little website or a silly little application. It is starting to be able to do tasks that knock 13% off IBM stock price. Or, in this case, rewriting Next.js and coming up with a way to deploy production apps 4 times faster. And this is 1 week and 1 engineer working on this, and he spent $1,000 in tokens. Yeah, it's not slowing down. Hey Oliver, how are you doing? Is this useful for my project? I'm creating anime currently. Never mind, it can't help with anything that I do. If you are doing anime, then you'd need to look at Seed Dance. I don't talk about video AI. It's not something I'm interested in. I don't talk about video, I don't talk about image AI, and I don't really talk about music. But if you were looking to do anime, I would look at Seed Dance. I've seen some fairly impressive results from it. It's not really anime, it's fighting. Oh, there we go. This is the best model apparently at the moment. But again, this is not something that I know enough about to be able to comment on. It looks pretty good to me. I saw a clever idea the other day. I went to film school. I did film production and worked in TV as well. Normally when you're putting together a film, when you're putting together a TV show, you need to get a script written, put together a proposal, and then go and get financing for that. And it's generally based on a script. It's based on a document. People have to read it and be like, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. And then you need to attach stars to it, raise funding, etc. A new paradigm is here where we can put together a trailer using artificial intelligence to show what this would look like. I think that's a really cool way to potentially get funding. You put together a trailer, you get it out on social media, you hit a certain level of virality on your trailer that show that people are interested in the idea, they're interested in the potential characters, the stories, etc. And then you use that to leverage raising money to get the project done. I think that's a really cool business model. If you're working on anime, for example, and you have a pitch for an anime show, put together a trailer fast in a week or so, spend, I don't know, a couple of hundred, maybe $1,000 on credit, getting it done, get it onto the internet, see if people react, see if there's a viral moment to it. If there is, use that, leverage it to go and raise money to get it built for real. If there is not, then you've wasted $1,000. That's fine. Move on to the next idea. It's a way to kind of MVP or proof of concept entertainment and shows, which I think could be a really cool opportunity for anyone who really rolls with that. I'm not seeing anyone doing it yet, so I think there's a short period where that would be highly impactful. Hey, Lyra. I'm in the office, so you're muted. The Pentagon is potentially going to declare Anthropic a supply chain risk on Friday. They're in a battle right now about a contract. Anthropic have said, oh, we're not going to allow you to use our AI for certain things, like autonomous kinetic weaponry, basically drone strikes and AI-based gun turrets that select targets using artificial intelligence. Anthropic said, nope, we're not having anything to do with that. Also, domestic surveillance. Pentagon wants to do both of these things, and Anthropic said, nope, absolutely not. Anthropic have a maybe $200 million contract with the Pentagon, so this is causing some heads to be butted, and apparently the threat the Pentagon is throwing out is Anthropic will be declared a supply chain risk, which is a designation normally only for foreign companies, Chinese and Russian companies for the most part. So to levy it and place it onto Anthropic could be the end of Anthropic. But we will see. They have until Friday to come to some kind of agreement. Good luck to the people at Anthropic. They're having a complicated week. Complicated couple of months, actually. I've been using Codex on Windows, built loads of stuff. Cold called businesses, no takers. What are you cold calling them on? Codex is great. Oh yeah, I've been playing around with Codex for over 9 months. The business side of things is my issue. This is the double-edged sword of artificial intelligence. We can build faster than ever, so we can make product. The problem is finding stuff that people want, producing something valuable that people are willing to pay for, and being able to charge enough to cover our costs and make a profit. That fundamental calculus of a business hasn't changed. What has become easier is building, but that doesn't mean that marketing or distribution is any easier. In my business course, I talk about AI. This is free, by the way. If you go to the courses tab, I talk about building, but I don't talk about building until week 4, because first we work out what your niche is, not your business idea, but your niche. What are you able to serve? And that depends on your skills, your connections, etc., not what is the hot new thing. Then we start in week 2 to immediately build our distribution. So we start to build in public, publicize what it is we're doing. We have to do this early on because distribution is more important than your actual product nowadays. Then only in week 3 do we finally lock in on the idea. Then week 4, we actually start to build it. Notice most people would just start building. They would start immediately like, okay, fire up Lovable, fire up Claude Code, and let's build. No. We wait for a bit. We work out what it is we're going to build, and then we start to build, because building is no longer the hard part. And then week 5 is making sure that we are aligned with our customers. So because we've started to get distribution in week 2, in week 5, we are going to talk to those people and we find out what they actually want. Basically, it's beta testing. I talk about how we incentivize beta testing, how we get feedback on our product. Then we start marketing, sales. This is all about working out what the market actually wants. Very few people focus on that. That is the important part. It's distribution and marketing, not building. Building is now very easy. Whereas before, building was the hard part. That's no longer the case. It's a hell of a shift. Dave 30 Irish says, is there a link for this? For what, sorry? For the live? The live will be on YouTube later. So we edit it, we make it nicer. It will also be in the newsletter. Every time I do a live, we cut it up and it will be placed in the newsletter. So the newsletter for this live will come out. So you can sign up for that at aiwithkyle.com. What else do we have? I had Ethan Wallach. No, this is too big to deal with right now. No, that's too big too. We're at 1 hour. I think that's fine. I will push these back to live. So I'll be back on around 10 or 11 UK time with the next live. And remember, everything can be found on aiwithkyle.com. You can join the community here. That will get you access to the newsletter, which is delivered every single day. The newsletter is a written version of what I've covered, so you can get through it a lot quicker. It also has any resources that I talk about. So for example, I talked about the Coursera AI in Higher Education report. I'll find that report and stick it in the newsletter so you can get access to it, as well as any tweets or any discussions will always be linked inside of the newsletter, which is delivered daily. As well as that, on the website, there are a number of courses. There's the one I just talked about, which is how to start a business using artificial intelligence, which is not about building. It's about working out what the hell your distribution is, what you're actually going to build. It's marketing. Another one, giving workshops. A good way to make money right now, because every business on earth is wondering what to do about AI. You can go in, talk to them about what they're going to do about AI. Don't go in as a technical expert, go in as somebody in their field, in their industry. If you are a social worker, talk to social workers about what AI means. If you work in aeronautical engineering, talk to aeronautical engineering companies about what this means for them. That's where you make your money. So it's in this Venn diagram here. This is on aiwithkyle.com, courses, and then the workshop masterclass. And there's a 20-minute long video plus a bunch of lessons on that. If you are interested in that, I'm also giving a live webinar talking about this. You can sign up at aiwithkyle.com. If you join the newsletter, we'll send out a reminder email as well. And I'm going to be talking 6 p.m. UK time live about how to give workshops, what kind of technical level of ability you need, how to get comfortable with public speaking, how to find clients as well. I personally charge, when I give a workshop, about £2,000 per hour for a workshop. So there's good money in this right now. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. All of this is available at aiwithkyle.com. It is free. It's all free. There's a lot there. There's too much there. I'm trying to work out a way to make it all more obvious how to get to all of the content that's on the ever-growing list of to-dos. Make sure you're signed up. And this live stream will be edited, tidied up, and put on YouTube, which I think I just hit, 17,000 subscribers. Make sure you're subscribed over there if you want the edited version as well, so that you can consume the content more easily as well. I'm going to finish up the show, and then I'm going to answer a few more questions, and then I will hop off. Thank you so much, everybody, and I'll see you. I'm still here, though. That was just for the edit. I've been playing around with Codex, built a finance product. If the first one isn't working, if nobody wants it, if you've actually gone and talked to potential customers and they're not biting, it might not be the best idea. So you need to pivot. Ideas are relatively cheap, and the ability to build them is now so easy. So you kind of need to find someone that people are willing to bite your hands off for. I talked about this in a lot of detail last week about how to validate a business idea. This is a technique I personally use. If you don't have an audience, it's fine. You put together a landing page, run adverts to that landing page, and you see if people bite. The old way of starting a business is you build the product in secret for 6 months, 12 months, and then you launch. It's a terrible way to run a business, because you might spend a year of your life building this thing, and then you launch and nobody cares and nobody buys. That is very dispiriting. It's a blow to your morale. It's very easy to bounce off entrepreneurship at that point. The better way is to find the market and then build a product for the market. It just makes life a lot easier. So the way in this guide I talk about doing is you build sales pages for products that don't exist yet. So you have an idea, and you're like, okay, I would like to build this financial product. I think this would be really useful for these people. This is what it solves. Here are the benefits. Here's what it does. You put that all into a sales page. You can do this using AI, and you create multiple variations of that sales page using AI. Then you run adverts, specifically meta ads, because they are the cheapest and you get the most volume, and it's good at auto-optimizing. You run 10, 20 pounds a day, $50, whatever it is, into adverts, and see if you get people signing up. So it can either be an email sign up, or you can actually pre-sell. You can say, hey, this isn't ready yet, but it will be in 2 weeks. Are you interested? Here's a deposit. And if people sign up and actually pay you, that's a really good validation that there's interest in this. The purpose of this is you can set this up in a day. So you go from an idea to a sales page to advertising in a few hours. You get it running. You run it for a week or so. If people bite, if people are interested, cool. Then we build the product. Then we actually build the business. If they do not bite, if they do not care, kill the idea and we move on to the next thing. And we've maybe spent a couple of £100. That's fine, because we have not spent a year of our life building something in secret, only to find out that people don't care. Instead, we spent £100, spent an afternoon building this sales page and the traffic, found out that people don't care. Cool, move on. We do the next thing. So I've written a whole guide about this. It's a very different way to do business, but more sensible, because there's always the risk that you fall in love with your idea. If other people don't care, if the market doesn't care, we tend to tie our emotions and our ego up to that product. And when people don't buy our product, we're like, oh God, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. It's just they don't want your product. But this allows us to test ideas very quickly, see if they're goers or not, kill them quickly and move on. This is issue 140, specifically the daily update 140. I highly recommend doing it this way. Will you have more webinars on this topic? Do you mean building, validating business ideas? So you can get the whole thing here. There is a 50-minute long video walking through it all. That's all on YouTube, and it's on this page here, so you can see it. I might do webinars on it, or like put together a training, because it's a very powerful idea. I see so many people build and build in secret, never talking to anyone, building the best product for a year, for 2 years, never releasing. That comes from fear. It's a fear response. Whereas this method of finding the market, then building the product, allows us to disengage our egos and our sense of self from the product, which means we don't have to be as afraid of failure. Will you have more webinars? Didn't you mention holding workshops? I'm giving a webinar on the 26th, and then next Tuesday and next Thursday as well, all at 6 p.m. UK time. If you sign up for the newsletter, I'm going to send out an email with the link. You can go to aiwithkyle.com, click on courses, scroll down, find the AI Workshop Masterclass, and there's webinar details. I'll send out an email reminder in the newsletter as well. Thursday, Tuesday, next Tuesday, and next Thursday, I'm giving this webinar, so you can jump onto those. Next week. Yes, next week. If you sign up and you cannot make it, a recording will be sent out afterwards as well. Up to you. What is your opinion on AI art? It's not something that's particularly interesting to me personally. I think AI is useful for starting businesses, for being productive, for making our lives. I don't see the benefits coming from AI art and AI video. It's the most wasteful in terms of electricity, and a lot of it is still slop. I think it is going to revolutionize Hollywood. We're not there yet, but filmmaking is going to change radically. We are still a ways away from that, but I think AI will come for those industries in the same way. But for me personally, it's just not an area of interest. I don't talk about AI art, I don't talk about AI video, and I don't really talk about AI music. I talk specifically about how we can use AI for business. So there are much smarter people than me who talk about artificial intelligence and its role in the creative industries. So I'd recommend checking them out instead, because I don't know enough. Thank you so much, everyone, and I will see you. Cheers.